Hello, let's get started. And thank you for either watching this on playback or joining me live on the GDPR Marketing Solutions weekly webinar. And if you're listening live, then you're probably tuned into the fact that GDPR law actually kicks in at midnight tonight. So I haven't seen anything in recent years that has had so much hype around it, that's covering and traverses all industries. But I'm hoping tonight I can give you some reassurance and some ideas as to how you might continue your marketing after today. The world will continue. So welcome. This is the GDPR Marketing Solutions weekly webinar. My name is Nick Griffith. If you don't know who I am, then I've been digital marketing for over 10 years. Some of the big things I've done include filling live events. And I've filled the O2 with over 7,000 people back in the day to see Richard Branson. So learning digital marketing was a key part of that sort of business, and GDPR is a key part, and data protection is a key part of marketing. So here I am. My goal is to try and bring some clarity and bring some ideas to the table that you can quickly implement. Tonight, I'm going to focus on how you can calculate your risks. So I'm going to go into some detail on this and give you some ideas to think about. What you'll learn tonight, I've put GDPR Marketing Solutions into 4 areas. I want anything that I introduce to be simple to implement. So anything from a techie to a marketeer to a business owner can implement this. My goal is to make things quick to implement. Clearly, we're all busy, and GDPR, I'd probably call it a distraction for many business owners from what I've heard. So quick to implement, I think, is a key part of any solutions. If it's complex, then it's not going to get done. GDPR compliant. I think that, obviously, we're moving into that territory. So the goal is for everything to be GDPR compliant and usable in any business. Data exists in any business. So whether you're offline or online or you're merging the two, then I want these solutions to be, my goal is for these solutions to be usable in any business. A quick legal disclaimer. I do work with data protection specialists. So I'm just going to read this out quickly. This is almost a legal blurb. So neither Nick Griffith, myself, or representatives of GDPR Marketing Solutions represent you, and they are not giving legal advice. The information and tools conveyed through this training and webinar are intended to help understanding and offer practical tools to help viewers with their marketing. So you're using this information and these ideas at your own risk. The goal from this webinar is to help you identify what your risks might be and help minimize these. What is GDPR? I think I'm going to do this very, very quickly. General Data Protection Regulation goes live on the 25th of May. It's designed to protect the data rights of the consumer, comes into midnight tonight, was already law if you're watching this on the playback. And it applies to B2C data or business to consumer data that is held or processed in the EU. So it could be US data, but if it's being processed in the EU, then it still applies. Confusion, stress, uncertainty. I think I have many words that I've probably described people by. And certainly people, I've seen a lot of emails come in the last, probably by the hour today and in the last week, that shows the level of uncertainty and confusion that exists out there. People saying, you've got to click here to opt in. I've even seen people, you've got to click here to opt out. I've seen many businesses not doing anything. So the fact that not everyone's following the same tune, I think, says a lot about the confusion that is out there. And even if you look down and drill down into the regulators and the language that's being used, it's certainly been written by a regulatory body and not a sort of implementation body. So I'm going to call it the grey zone, and how things come out in the wash over the coming days, weeks, months, and years as to how the law really takes shape. But right now, I think there's going to be a lot of grey zones. It's not going to be black or white. And the marketing solutions for after the 25th of May, clearly that's what is going to be on everyone's lips. Can I email my list? What do I do with the data that I've already got? How am I doing the right thing in capturing the data, the new data that I'm gathering? Is that GDPR compliant? But I would say one of the main things on people's lips as we transition is, what can I do with my marketing to my existing data, my existing contacts? So today's spotlight, or the spotlight for this webinar, is post GDPR email marketing and how to calculate your risks. I'll emphasize now, it's not a case of there being no risk, but the goal is to keep it low risk. And I think it's worth saying some useful advice that I've heard on one of many webinars, and that's to say that GDPR is going to be initially enforced a lot like I think you could say Facebook was in the early days. It's going to be driven by complaints. There's not a huge body of enforcers and regulatory machines and bots out there looking for you making mistakes. However, if you are marketing and you're marketing in a non-GDP compliant way, and people report you for that, that's going to come to the attention of the ICO, and that's going to put you in the shortlist for being investigated. What the outcome of that is, I'm going to come on to later in the webinar with some examples, but I think that's an important point. If you're marketing and nobody in your audience is complaining and they're all loving you, your risks are still pretty low, even if they haven't given you explicit consent to continue marketing. However, obviously, if your audience is unfamiliar with you, the rapport is low, and you start to generate complaints, and your audience becomes more aware that they're the actual power that they have, the new powers that they have with their data protection, then this is where your risks start to increase. So I thought, let's start out with some good news. How much of your data is covered by GDPR? Because it may not be 100%. And this actually came from a US webinar I was listening to. And their first task was to identify what the risks of GDPR were and to actually think of, well, what are the risks? And what I've done here is I've looked at Facebook, which we've all heard of, but also some companies out of the FTSE 100. And what I've done here is just simply put in what the GDPR upper level fine might look like for them. So this is worst case scenario. And this is based on a 4% of global revenue from 2017. And you can see that, I mean, a Facebook kind of size, I mean, these are big businesses. These are global businesses with revenues in the multiple billions, but they would be facing down a fine of, 1.2 billion pounds. And the largest business in the UK could be facing a fine of £5.5 billion. These are not insignificant numbers. And sure, there is a static fine of up to 20 million euro, about 17 million pounds. And that, I think the regulatory body has got the option. How they choose between them is going to depend on the size of the company. But you can see these are not small numbers. Looking at it sort of more realistically, I think turnover of a business, small businesses, startup businesses, SMEs, I've put these numbers down here, but you can see that, let's say, you had a business of £500,000 turnover, you're facing a fine of £20,000. It's not an insignificant amount of money, and this number is going to come straight off your bottom line. So this is turnover. It's a percentage of. It's not a percentage of profit. So I think that's an important point to make. And I thought that was worth pointing out some of the numbers, but having a quick look at how much of your data is covered by GDPR, I've just put it into three categories. The blue being EU data, that's covered. The green being non-EU data. So that is data that you can prove through address, mailing address, IP address is clearly not in the EU. So clearly I thought the main market now would be something like the US. The gray zone is you can't prove it's not in the EU. You're not sure. So by default, you have to assume it is in the EU. So I think that the good news is there may be some quick wins. There may be an opportunity to say, well, actually, here, in this scenario, 2/3 of the data is in the EU, and I can't prove it's not in the EU. But the good news is that 1/3 of my data is clearly not in the EU, the green portion. So I don't even have to look at reconsent, changing the T's and C's, privacy policies, and everything else. So it's worth looking through your data and identifying anything that is clearly not EU based and take that in the don't worry about this immediately bucket. So that's a quick win for you. But how at risk is your business from GDPR? I've put this visual together here, and I hope this puts something graphical around what the risks are, might be. And what is a risk? I'm saying low risk and high risk. This is all relative. These are my terms. There is no risk to this, but clearly for a business to keep functioning, it's going to need to continue marketing. And I was sad to read an email last night from a business that's been around 34 years in the field of, you could call it paid mail outs or brokering, data sharing. And they're not sure how to navigate these waters. So they're shutting up shop and are ceasing trading at the end of May, which is very sad to see. So I think it's important to say that there are risks associated with what I'm going to go through here, but I think it's identifying the low risk. So let's crack on here. Two axes here. I think they're self-explanatory, but I'll explain anyway. The quality of permission. So what I mean by that is, what is the quality of the permission of the data that you've got here? And I'm going to go through another example, but what I'm going to say here is quality of permission. You've got at the low end of quality, basically you bought a list, you imported a file, you're using that as sort of push marketing. You've got no permission at all. They don't know who you are. They've never seen a landing page and opted in. So that's sort of one end of the spectrum. And that happens, and it happens on quite a regular basis. But I can see that type of marketing dying quite quickly. The high end of quality of permission would be, I guess you could say, almost an updated opt-in form with your updated privacy policy and cookies policy in terms of use, where people are clearly giving explicit consent. And I would say that is high quality. So quality of marketing. Marketing has been around as long as business has been around. Marketing's been around probably as long as human beings have been around in their own way. You don't attract a partner without presenting yourself in a good way. So forgetting business, marketing has always been around. But quality of marketing, there's always been good practice and bad practice. But I think that the quality of your marketing, so that's not so much the quality of the content, but the quality of how you are conducting your marketing, how often you're doing your marketing. And I'll go into this, but it's the whole area of marketing. So clearly if you've got low quality of permission and your quality of marketing, so let's use an example of poor quality marketing, a daily email with the same offer, the same message that hasn't been segmented into the list, and it's just pushing the same offer out. It's not an offer that's actually necessarily attracted by the audience. It's an offer that is quite simply, it's just being pushed onto the audience. So that would put you, I would call it, at high risk. On the flip side, of course, you've got high quality marketing. It's been segmented. You've segmented your list. You're giving the audience what they want, which is what you should be doing anyway for good business. But your audience has come and looked at your website and they've seen ABC. You're giving them offers on ABC, not X, Y, and Z. That is good quality marketing. You're not sending to them daily, but the more they use, the more you're communicating back with them, and you're not letting the lead go cold either. So it's a balance, and there's no necessarily right and wrong. But there's this big bit in the middle I'm calling the gray zone, which is what I think most businesses are going to be. And it's not available tonight, but I am going to create a simple to use tool that will allow you to calculate the GDPR risks from email marketing and marketing for your business. So I'm going to make that available in the next week. And if you're listening to this on a recording, all you're going to have to do is go to gdprmarketingsolutions.com/tools. And there you'll be able to access a free risk calculator. So please go there. So the quality of your data, I put this into a really abstract of quality score of 1 to 6, and therefore an associated GDPR risk. But let's go through these, because if you're looking at your list as one size fits all, then you need to get smarter than that. And that would be my advice to you. So let's look at the data, how it might appear. You've got, I'm going to call them, I've given them on my own labels. These are not industry labels. These are my own labels, but names here. So starting at the top, you've got a time waster. They've never opened an email. If you're continuing to market to these people or these businesses, then that's going to put you at a higher risk, simply because they haven't necessarily given consent, or they have been given consent, but they're not showing any interest, and you're actually, it's costing you money to market to these people. So this would be the first group I would look at cutting out of your marketing. Someone I called a passive lurker. They last opened an email more than 6 months ago, but they have opened an email. So moving slightly at the score of giving them a 1, it's still quite a higher risk, because they're not showing much interest in your business. And that's down to a mismatch or poor marketing on your front. An active lurker, almost a contradiction in term, but again, these terms are just to give you some example. They've opened emails, but they're not clicking. So again, this is still the majority of people. They're taking some interest, but they're not actually buying. And then I'm calling it, a warm prospect. They're opening, they're engaging, they're opening your emails, they're clicking, but they're not buying. So they're getting as far as the website or the offer or even the shopping cart, but they're not buying. Now, if you continue to market to this category with similar offers, then I would call the GDPR risk fairly low. What's fairly low? This is all relative, but I hope this gives you some insight as to how you might continue your marketing going forwards. Next is obviously a customer. So this is all customers from the past 6 months, moving up the quality score, marketing to them. Again, the marketing has got to be relevant and appropriate, but I'm going to say that the GDPR risk for this category is low. A repeat customer, someone who's bought more than once. Again, I put in something in the last couple of months, but they're buying from other ones. This is really going into the sort of the high quality customers and the high quality data that you own. Your GDPR risk from marketing to them, and I'm talking about marketing in the sense that you haven't got 100% GDPR compliant permission yet. you will do over time, but it's going to be a sliding scale. It's not all in place. It's going to be in place over time as they go through new sign-up forms, they buy again, and they use your landing pages. They'll be opting into a new T's and C's. So over time, they are agreeing or they're changing their preferences. But right now, you don't have it. So what action do you take? Well, I think it's a low risk to be marketing to your customers and your regular customers. And your members are probably your lowest risk at all, because you're using them on perhaps a recurring monthly basis. So very low risk, and probably not your immediate focus for GDPR compliance, because these are people who you've got all their data. By their very nature, they're giving you consent because you are recurring billing them. So focus your energies where the risks are. What's the quality of your marketing? And I put this into 4 categories, and I'm going to keep this fairly simple, and I'm probably going to look at this in more detail in future webinars. But what's the quality of the content? So how relevant is the content to their initial inquiry? How relevant is the content you're sending them to their behavior? So what are they opening? What are they not opening? What are they clicking on? What are they going and browsing on your website? Even fairly affordable, fairly low-cost CRMs have the capacity to track the customer or the prospect or the data's behavior, and then it's up to you to set up a marketing follow-on that matches their behavior. So if it's one size fits all, that's going to be low-quality content. If it's customized by the segment, then that's higher quality content. What about the offers? Again, it's relevancy and how relevant is it to their behavior and what they've bought before. So if it's seasonal, make sure it's in the right context. And if they bought X, then you should be making offers that are related to X or similar to X if they bought X, and making it relevant to the customer. If they haven't seen you in a while, I think a good piece of advice which I'll share now is you might be tempted to make a higher offer to a lurker or a warm prospect, whereas you should consider how that reflects on your existing customers. Perhaps you should be offering them the best offer for staying with you, and then not making an offer, but making an offer that's proportional to those that you're trying to become customers from being a prospect. What's the quality of your marketing? Well, the frequency, I don't think there's a right and wrong here. I think it's a test and measure, and that's marketing in a nutshell. But I think most people would agree that multiple emails a day is probably too much, and an email a year is probably too little. So there's a huge sliding scale in there of what's right and what's wrong. And looking at your stats is key to seeing what's working and what's not working. Another good way of testing what's working and what's not working is split testing to see, well, we'll try this with this segment and this with this segment, which is generating the best results. Okay, A is working better than the B. Let's continue with A. What else can we change? And seeing what's working out. And then finally, well, the copy, the presentation. So the words, do they fit with the brand? Do they fit with the offer? Do they fit with what you're trying to sell? Or do they fit with what you're trying to achieve, which could just be building rapport, and it's a segmented approach. So you're making sure that everything is in alignment. There's many, many, many moving parts of this, and I'm covering on some of the key parts of this. So on other calls and other recordings, I'm going to take a deeper look at these. But for now, I just wanted to make you think, if you were sending out an email in the next 24 hours, okay, what things should I be thinking about? What are my quick wins? What are my quick checks? Think on these lines. So with those sorts of things in mind, I brought back the graph. Have a think. Where would you consider your business being realistic? Are you in the high risk? Are you in the low risk? Or are you in the gray zone? And would you like more towards the lower risk? As I said, I'm going to create a simple to use tool that allows you to calculate within the context of how I've described low risk and high risk, how at risk your business is from GDPR marketing after the 25th of May, 2018. Well, marks the end of this recording. I'm actually just going to go quickly through into next week on what we're going to cover. And it's going to be 7 days on from the law change. We're going to look at strategies for marketing post GDPR, in particular email copy to keep in contact and keep the risk low. So practical tools that you can use. And campaign ideas for post GDPR. So what campaign should you choose for your lurkers? Probably nothing at all. You shouldn't be contacting them. Well, what campaigns should you be choosing for your warm prospects versus your customers? So campaign ideas, and of course Q&A. And if you after listening to this, you've liked what you're hearing, you still got lots of questions, and you need any extra help, then go to this link, GDPR, http://bit.ly GDPR marketing tools. And if you're not sure exactly what this is, I put the home page to the tools itself. So you can just go to www.GDPR marketing solutions as it appears at the bottom of the screen, and that will take you to the same place. For a legal pack, you can go here. And for a free one-to-one 20-minute consultation with me, and where I can take a look at your business with a custom feedback, personalized feedback, then just email me, nick@nickgriffith.com. We're going to be on the next call at 7 p.m. GMT next week. But this is a recurring webinar, so please do. If you've got questions and you're not sure where to go, then you can just email me there. And this is a recurring webinar for 30 minutes every Thursday. And if you're listening to a recording, then you can register by just going to the homepage, GDPR Marketing Solutions, and then you'll be listening to the live ones and all the future recordings. Thank you very much for listening and watching. And my name is Nick Griffith. I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.